Ruth was 35 years old when she finally stopped checking her phone every 5 minutes. Not because she was busy, not because she didn't care anymore, but because she had finally accepted something that broke her for years. No one was coming. But this story doesn't start there. It starts 14 years earlier when Ruth was 21, standing in her graduation gown, holding her degree in one hand and a journal in the other. Inside that journal was a plan, a detailed, color-coded, faith-filled plan that looked something like this. Age 22, meet a godly man. Age 23, courtship. Age 24, wedding. Age 25 to 29, 3 children. Age 30, settled, complete, purpose fulfilled. She didn't just write this plan, she prayed over it, fasted over it, believed God confirmed it. And why wouldn't he? Ruth was everything a good Christian girl was supposed to be. She led the praise team. She was in the prayer group. She dressed modestly. She avoided worldly men. She had never even kissed anyone because she was saving herself for her husband. She did everything right. So when her friends started getting engaged at 22, she smiled and said, "My time is coming." When her classmates got married at 23, she bought the gifts and said, "God's timing is perfect." When her younger cousin got married at 24, she stood as the maid of honor and whispered to herself in the bathroom, "Just hold on, he's preparing someone special for you." But by 25, the smiles were harder to hold. Before we continue, like this video and subscribe. Trust me, you don't want to miss how this ends. Back to the story. It was her 26th birthday when her mother said the thing that would haunt her for years, and they were sitting at the dining table, just the two of them. The cake her mom baked had "Happy Birthday, Ruth" written in pink icing. Her mom poured the tea slowly, too slowly. Then she said it. "Ruth, is there something you're not telling me?" Ruth looked up. "What do you mean, Mom?" Her mother's eyes were gentle, but the question wasn't. "Is there a reason you're not in a relationship? Are you too picky? Do men approach you and you turn them down? Because you know, you're not getting any younger." Ruth felt her throat tighten. "Mom, I'm only 26. Only?" Her mother put down the teapot. "Your grandmother was married with 2 children by 26. I was married at 24. Your friends are all getting settled. I'm just asking because people are starting to ask me, and I don't know what to tell them." People. That word stuck in Ruth's chest like a thorn. Not, "I'm worried," not, "I care," but people are asking. Ruth forced a smile. "Tell them I'm trusting God." Her mother nodded, but Ruth saw the doubt in her eyes. That night, Ruth prayed differently. She didn't pray with faith. She prayed with fear. "God, what's wrong with me? Why is everyone else getting chosen except me? Did I do something wrong? Please, please send him soon. I'm begging you." She prayed until her knees hurt, and nothing changed. By 28, Ruth had tried everything. She switched from pants to only skirts. Someone told her men liked feminine women. She started wearing makeup. Not too much. Just enough to highlight her natural beauty. She changed her hairstyle. She smiled more. She learned to cook better. She even joined the church drama group because someone said, "Men notice women who are involved." And men did notice her, but not in the way she wanted. There was Brother James. He was nice, a little awkward. He worked at a bank. He asked her out for coffee after church. She said yes. They talked for 2 hours. She laughed at his jokes. She asked about his family. She even prayed with him before they left. She thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is God's answer. 3 days later, she saw him at church, holding hands with Sister Blessing. Ruth smiled at them, congratulated them. Then she went home and cried for 4 hours. Then there was Daniel, the choir director. Everyone said he was marriage material, handsome, spiritual, had his own car. He asked Ruth to help him organize the choir's anniversary program. She said yes immediately. They spent weeks planning together, late-night calls, texts about song selections. She felt something growing. One evening, after rehearsal, he walked her to her car. "Ruth, I need to tell you something." Her heart pounded. This was it. "I really appreciate your help with all of this. You've been amazing. I can see why men would be lucky to have you." She smiled. "Thank you, Daniel. That's why I wanted to ask. Do you think your friend Cynthia would be interested in me? I've liked her for a while, but I didn't know how to approach her. Since you two are close, I thought maybe you could help." Ruth's smile stayed frozen on her face. "Sure," she heard herself say. I'll talk to her." She didn't cry that time. She just sat in her car for 30 minutes, staring at nothing. At 30, Ruth made a decision. The problem wasn't her. The problem was her environment. "Maybe I'm in the wrong city," she told herself. "Maybe I need a fresh start. New church, new people, new opportunities." So she moved. She moved out, got a new job, found a new church. Big church, thousands of members, active singles ministry. This is it, she thought. This is where I'll meet him. The first month she attended every singles event. The second month she volunteered for every outreach. The third month, she started noticing the pattern. The men in the singles ministry fell into two categories: the ones who weren't serious, just there to fellowship; the ones who were serious. About younger women, Ruth was 30, but the men her age were pursuing the 23-year-olds. She watched it happen again and again. A 35-year-old brother would testify about finding a wife, a 24-year-old sister. A 32-year-old man would get engaged. To a 22-year-old, and Ruth would clap, smile, say, "Amen," then go home and scream into her pillow. Scene 5. The shame. By 32, Ruth stopped going to weddings. She made excuses. "I'm traveling that weekend. I have a work thing. I'm not feeling well." Because she couldn't do it anymore. She couldn't sit through another ceremony, watching another bride walk down the aisle, wondering why God kept saying yes to everyone else, but no to her. She stopped attending family gatherings too, because every single one ended the same way. "Ruth, when will we come and eat rice?" "Ruth, you're not getting younger, oh." "Ruth, is it that you're too picky?" "Ruth, have you checked yourself? Maybe there's a spiritual problem." That last one came from her aunt, at a family reunion, in front of everyone. "Maybe you need deliverance," her aunt said, loud enough for the whole table to hear. "Sometimes these things are spiritual. You're beautiful, educated, godly. There must be a reason men aren't staying." Ruth excused herself, locked herself in the bathroom, and cried silently so no one would hear. That night, she looked at herself in the mirror and hated what she saw. She hated her face, her body, her age, her life. "What is wrong with me?" she whispered. "What is so wrong with me that no one wants me?" By 33, Ruth had become someone she didn't recognize. She stopped posting on social media. She muted friends who posted engagement photos. She skipped church some Sundays because she couldn't bear another testimony about someone finding love. She became an introvert, not by nature, but by pain. She withdrew, isolated, convinced herself that being alone was easier than being disappointed again. Her prayers changed too. They went from hopeful to desperate, from desperate to angry, from angry to silent. By 34, she barely prayed about marriage anymore. Not because her faith was stronger, but because she was too tired to hope. 3 weeks after her 35th birthday, Ruth sat on her bedroom floor at 2 a.m., surrounded by journals. Journals filled with prayers she had written for 14 years. Lord, send me a husband. God, I'm ready for my Boaz. Father, let this be my year. Page after page after page of the same desperate plea, written in different words. She read them all that night, and then she did something she never thought she'd do. She tore them up. Not in anger, not in rebellion, but in exhaustion. I can't do this anymore, she whispered to the empty room. I can't spend one more day begging for something that clearly isn't meant for me. She gathered the torn pages, threw them away, and sat back down on the floor. And for the first time in 14 years, she felt something unexpected. Relief. Not happiness. Not peace. Just relief. The relief of finally letting go of a weight she'd been carrying for so long that she'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. The next Sunday, Ruth went to church. Not because she wanted to, but because she'd promised to help in the children's ministry. After service, she was packing up the coloring books when Pastor Mrs. Clara walked in. Pastor Mrs. Clara was in her 60s, warm eyes, gentle spirit. She'd been married for 40 years. Ruth, can we talk for a moment? Ruth's stomach tightened. Sure, Ma. They sat down in the small classroom, surrounded by cartoon posters of Noah's Ark and Daniel in the lion's den. I've been watching you, Pastor Mrs. Clara said softly, for months now, and I see something in your eyes that I used to see in my own mirror. Ruth looked down. What's that, Ma? The look of someone who's measuring their worth by what they don't have. Ruth felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. Pastor Mrs. Clara continued, Let me ask you something. If God told you today that you would never get married, would you still love him? The question hit Ruth like a physical blow. I don't know, she whispered. That's honest. Pastor Mrs. Clara nodded. And that's the problem, my dear. Somewhere along the way, you stopped seeking God and started seeking a husband. You stopped worshiping the Creator and started worshiping the blessing. Ruth's tears finally fell. But Ma, I've waited so long. I've done everything right. I've prayed. I've fasted. I've stayed pure. Why won't God answer me? Pastor Mrs. Clara, I reached over and held Ruth's hand. Maybe he has been answering you, just not the way you wanted. Maybe he's been saying, I want you to see yourself the way I see you. Complete, whole, valuable, with or without a ring. Ruth sobbed. But I'm 35, Ma. All my friends are married. My family thinks something is wrong with me. I go to bed alone every night wondering if I'll die alone. And what if you do? Pastor Mrs. Clara's voice was gentle but firm. What if marriage never comes? Does that make your life less valuable? Does that mean God loves you less? Does that mean you have no purpose? Ruth couldn't answer. Your problem isn't that you're single, Ruth. Your problem is that you've made being single your identity. And until you learn who you are in Christ, truly learn it, you'll never be free, whether you get married or not. That conversation changed something in Ruth. Not overnight, but slowly. She started doing something radical. She started living. Not living while waiting for marriage. Just living. She took the painting class she'd always wanted to take but thought was frivolous. She traveled alone for the first time. She went out, stayed in a small hotel, ate at restaurants by herself. At first, it felt awkward, lonely, but then it felt like freedom. She started a blog, not about relationships or faith or finding a husband, about education, her passion, the things she'd studied for but had been too distracted to fully embrace. She wrote about teaching methods, child psychology, learning disabilities, and people read it. Teachers reached out to her. Parents thanked her. She started getting invited to speak at schools. For the first time in years, Ruth felt like she had something to offer the world beyond being someone's future wife. She started praying differently too. Not, "God, send me a husband," but "God, show me who you created me to be." 6 months into this new journey, Ruth did something she hadn't done in 3 years. She attended a family gathering, her cousin's traditional wedding, the same cousin who had gotten married at 24. She was renewing her vows for her 10th anniversary. Ruth's mother was shocked when Ruth said she'd come. "Are you sure?" her mother asked carefully. "Yes, Mom, I'm sure." At the party, Ruth braced herself for the questions, and they came. "Ruth, you're here. It's been so long. Ruth, still no husband? Ah, what are we going to do with you? Ruth, your mates are renewing vows and you haven't even married once. Don't you think it's time to lower your standards?" But something was different this time. Ruth didn't cry, didn't make excuses, didn't run to the bathroom. She just smiled and said, "God's plan for me is different, and I'm learning to be okay with that." Her Aunt Grace, the same one who'd suggested deliverance, raised an eyebrow. "Different? Different how? By keeping you single forever?" Ruth looked her aunt in the eye. "Maybe. And if that's his plan, then I trust that he knows what he's doing. My worth isn't determined by whether I have a husband. It's determined by whose I am." The table went quiet. Ruth excused herself, not because she was hurt, but because she wanted to congratulate her cousin. As she walked away, she heard her mother say something she never expected. "Leave the girl alone. She's finally found her peace." Ruth stopped looking for a husband. She stopped going to singles events. She stopped asking married friends to keep her in mind if they knew anyone. She just lived. She focused on her work. Her blog grew. A publishing company reached out about turning her articles into a book. She started mentoring young girls in her church. Girls who were 21, 22, 23, the age she'd been when this all started. She told them things she wished someone had told her. Your value is not in a ring. God's timeline is not your timeline. Don't trade your peace for a plan. On a random Tuesday afternoon, Ruth was at a bookstore. She was looking for resources for her book when she accidentally bumped into someone. Books scattered everywhere. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry," she said, bending down to help pick them up. No, it's my fault. I wasn't looking where I was going." The voice was deep, warm. She looked up. He was tall, well-dressed, kind eyes, and he was holding a book on child psychology. "You're interested in child development?" Ruth asked before she could stop herself. He smiled. "Actually, yes. I run a foundation that builds schools in rural communities. I was looking for resources on learning disabilities." Ruth's eyes widened. "Really? That's exactly what I write about?" "You're a writer?" "Sort of. I have a blog. I'm working on turning it into a book." His smile grew wider. "That's incredible. What's the blog called?" She told him. His eyes lit up. "Wait, you're that Ruth? I've been reading your blog for months. Your article on dyslexia intervention changed how we approach teaching in our schools." Ruth was stunned. They talked for 30 minutes in the middle of the bookstore aisle, about education, about purpose, about faith. Before he left, he said, "I know this is random, but would you be interested in consulting for our foundation? We could really use your expertise." Yes, I'd love to." "Great." He pulled out his phone. "Can I get your number?" Ruth gave it to him. As he walked away, she realized she hadn't even asked his name. And she also realized something else. She hadn't felt desperate, hadn't performed, hadn't wondered if he was the one. She'd just been herself. His name was David. He was 38, never been married, had spent most of his life building his foundation. "I always thought I'd get married young," he told her during one of their consulting meetings, but I got so focused on the work that, I don't know, time just passed. I get that, Ruth said, and she meant it. They started working together, professional, respectful. But somewhere along the way, Ruth noticed things. The way he listened when she talked. The way he remembered small details. The way he prayed before meetings. Not performative prayers, but genuine conversations with God. One evening, after a particularly long strategy session, David closed his laptop and looked at Ruth. Can I ask you something personal? Ruth's heart skipped. Sure. Why aren't you married? Ruth laughed. Wow. Straight to it, huh? I'm sorry, that was... No, it's okay. Ruth took a breath. Honestly, I used to ask myself that question every single day. I used to think something was wrong with me. But I've learned that some journeys take longer than others, and that's okay. David nodded slowly. I like that. Some journeys take longer. They sat in comfortable silence. Then David said, For what it's worth, I think the wait will be worth it. For whoever gets to marry you. Ruth felt something flutter in her chest, but this time it wasn't desperation. It was hope. Quiet, gentle hope. 3 months later, David asked Ruth to meet him at a park. Not for work, just to talk. They sat on a bench overlooking a small lake. David seemed nervous. Ruth, I need to tell you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me after I say it. Okay. When I met you in that bookstore, I wasn't there by accident. I'd been reading your blog for months. I knew you lived in Abuja. I knew you sometimes went to that bookstore. I went there, hoping I'd run into you. Ruth's eyes widened. David continued quickly. I know that sounds creepy, but it wasn't like that. I'd been praying for God to send me a woman who loved what I loved, who cared about the things I cared about, who had a heart for education and children and purpose. And when I found your blog, I felt like maybe God was answering. He turned to face her. These past few months working with you, Ruth, you're everything I didn't know I was looking for. You're brilliant. You're kind. You love God. You don't need me to complete you. You're already whole. And that's exactly what I need. Ruth felt tears forming. David, I'm not asking you to marry me right now, he said gently. I'm just asking, can I pursue you? Intentionally. With the goal of marriage. If you're open to it. Ruth looked at this man. This kind, godly, purposeful man. The man she would have desperately chased 14 years ago. The man she would have molded herself to fit. But now she was just herself. And he wanted her anyway. Yes, she whispered. I'm open to it. 8 months into their courtship, Ruth and David were planning their wedding. It should have been the happiest time of her life, and it was. But something unexpected kept happening. Ruth kept crying. Not tears of joy, tears of grief. One night, David found her on the couch, looking at old photos on her phone. Photos from when she was 25, 27, 30. Smiling photos. But David could see the sadness behind her eyes in every single one. What's wrong? He sat beside her. Ruth wiped her tears. I'm sorry. I don't know why I keep doing this. Doing what? Mourning. She looked at him. I'm mourning the girl I used to be. The one who spent 14 years hating herself. The one who thought she was unlovable. The one who believed the lie that she wasn't enough. She took a shaky breath. David, you're amazing. You're everything I prayed for and more. But sometimes I look at you and I feel angry. David looked confused. Angry at me? No. Angry at the timing. Fresh tears fell. Why couldn't you have come when I was 25? Why did I have to wait 14 years? Why did I have to go through all that pain, all that rejection, all that shame, just to get here? It was the question she'd been afraid to ask, the question that had been haunting her even in her happiness. David was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Ruth, can I tell you something I've never told you?" She nodded. "When I was 28, I almost got married." Ruth's eyes widened. "What?" Her name was Jennifer. Beautiful, spiritual, everything I thought I wanted. We were engaged. Wedding was planned. Invitations printed. What happened? David's voice got heavy. 3 weeks before the wedding, I found out she'd been cheating on me. With my business partner. For over a year. Ruth gasped. "It destroyed me," David continued. "Not just the betrayal, but the fact that I'd been so blind, so desperate to get married that I ignored every red flag. She didn't love me. She loved the idea of being married to someone with money and status." He looked at Ruth. "After that, how I shut down. I threw myself into work. I told myself I'd never trust anyone again. For 10 years, Ruth, 10 years I built walls." His voice cracked. "And then I read your blog, and I saw a woman who wasn't performing, who wasn't desperate, who was whole, who had something real to offer beyond just wanting to be married. And I thought, this is who I've been waiting for." He took her hands. "If you had met me at 25, I would have been 32. Still broken, still bitter, still in pieces from what Jennifer did. I wouldn't have been ready for you. I wouldn't have seen you. I wouldn't have valued what makes you special." Ruth's tears flowed freely now. "And if I'd met you at 25, David continued, you would have been that desperate girl, the one who would have molded herself to fit me, the one who would have lost herself trying to keep me, and we wouldn't have had what we have now." He wiped her tears gently. "The wait wasn't a punishment, Ruth. It was a preparation. God wasn't withholding from you. He was protecting you. From wrong men. From wrong timing. From a version of love that would have broken you." On Ruth's wedding day, something beautiful happened. She was in the bridal suite getting ready when there was a knock on the door. Her mother came in. Ruth expected the usual. "You look beautiful. I'm so happy for you." But instead, her mother sat down and started crying. "Mom, what's wrong?" Her mother shook her head. "I need to apologize to you." "For what?" "For all those years, all those questions, all that pressure." Her mother's voice broke. "I made you feel like you weren't enough, like there was something wrong with you. And there was nothing wrong with you. Baby, nothing." She held Ruth's face in her hands. "I was projecting my own fears onto you. I got married young because I was afraid of being alone, and I thought I was protecting you by pushing you to do the same. But I was hurting you." Tears streamed down both their faces. "I'm so sorry, Ruth. You didn't need a husband to be complete. You were always complete. I just couldn't see it." Ruth hugged her mother tightly. "I forgive you, Mom." As Ruth walked down the aisle, she looked at David waiting for her. Handsome, wealthy, godly. Everything she'd written in that journal at 21. But that's not what made her cry. What made her cry was this. She didn't need him. She wanted him, loved him, chose him. But she didn't need him to feel valuable. She was already whole. And that made all the difference. When they exchanged vows, David said something that wasn't in the script. "Ruth, thank you for not settling. Thank you for waiting for God's best instead of accepting good enough. Thank you for becoming who you were meant to be before you became my wife." The church erupted in amens. 6 months after the wedding, Ruth was mentoring a 26-year-old girl named Grace. Grace was crying, desperate, convinced something was wrong with her because she wasn't married yet. Ruth recognized the look in her eyes. She'd seen it in the mirror for 14 years. "Let me tell you something," Ruth said gently. "The wait isn't about the ring. It's about the woman you become while you're waiting." She pulled out her phone and showed Grace a photo. It was Ruth at 25, smiling, but empty. Then she showed her a photo from her 35th birthday, before she met David. Genuinely smiling, at peace. "See the difference?" Ruth asked. "At 25 I was performing. At 35 I was being. And that's who my husband fell in love with. Not the desperate girl, but the free woman." Grace wiped her tears. "But what if I wait and no one comes?" Ruth smiled. "Then you'll still have yourself, and you'll have learned the greatest lesson of all, that you are enough. With or without a ring, with or without a man, with or without anyone's approval." She leaned forward. "The tragedy isn't being single at 35. The tragedy is spending 14 years hating yourself. Don't make my mistake, Grace. Live now, become now, love yourself now. Because whether marriage comes or not, you deserve to enjoy your life." Ruth and David's story became a testimony in their church, but Ruth always made sure people understood the real miracle. And the miracle wasn't that God sent her a husband. The miracle was that God taught her who she was without one. The miracle was that she learned to see herself the way God saw her. Valuable, whole, purposeful, loved. The miracle was that when the right man finally came, she was healthy enough to receive him. Because the most dangerous prayer isn't "God, send me a spouse." It's "God, I'll do anything, even lose myself, to get one." Ruth's story wasn't about waiting for a man. It was about waiting to become the woman God created her to be. And in the end, that was the greatest love story of all. Like if this encouraged you, subscribe for more. And remember, your wait has purpose. God bless.